Reproduction and Family Structure Part 2. Before the reign of Suleiman, the role of these women was each to produce and educate a single son. It was they who were responsible for their son's upbringing and welfare, but they had no part in the government of the empire, except perhaps in the provinces to which the Sultan had assigned their sons as governors. With the reign of Suleiman the pattern changed. From the time of Hurrem, it was quite usual for a concubine to give birth to more than one son and, with the death of her consort, to assume the role of queen mother, with a powerful influence over her son, the ruling sultan. This development reached its height in the careers of Kosum and Turin, two women whose strong personalities seem to have held the dynasty together during almost 40 years of dynastic, political and military crises. The position and power of the queen mother was never formalized, but both foreign and Ottoman observers were aware of its reality, and indeed, in a system where proximity to the sultan was a source of power, it seemed quite natural. Despite the Ottoman dynasty's preference for reproducing through slave concubines, in the first century and a half of Ottoman rule, royal marriages were commonplace. Their purpose, however, was always political and never reproductive. Whether Osman married Malhachin, and whether Orhan's consort, Nilüfer, was a wife or concubine are matters for speculation. The earliest certain reference to the marriage of an Ottoman ruler appears in the Byzantine Chronicle by the Emperor John VI Cantacuzénos, who records, in his version of the story, how Orhan requested his daughter Theodora in marriage, 11 promising Cantacuzénos that he would be as a son, and place his entire army under Cantacuzénos's orders and apos. The marriage took place in 1346 and, following the ceremony, Orhan did in fact supply his father-in-law with troops which were a factor in his seizure of the Byzantine throne in 1346. What the marriage had done was to establish an alliance between the two families. After John Cantacuzénos's abdication in 1354 and the accession of John V Palaiologos, with whom Orhan had no family links, Ottoman attacks on Byzantine territory began again. At the same time, Orhan continued to support the Cantacuzénos family, sending troops to Cantacuzénos's son, Matthew, in his unsuccessful attempt to wrest the Byzantine throne from John V Palaiologos. This emperor's solution to Ottoman aggression was to try to link his own family to Orhan's. In 1358, he betrothed his daughter Irene to Orhan's son, Halil, with a request that the elderly Orhan appoint Halil as his successor. Again, he hoped that a family alliance would result in Orhan's sparing his territory and supporting his throne. The plan failed. The marriage never took place and Halil did not succeed Orhan. The practice of marrying into foreign dynasties was to continue under Orhan's successor, Murad I, but with an important difference. Orhan's marriage to Theodora had made him an equal or, if one is to believe John Cantacuzénos, a junior partner in an alliance. By Murad's time, marriage had become an instrument of subjugation. Some time after 1371, Murad married Tamar, the sister of the Bulgarian Tsar Shishman of Tarnovo. The purpose of the match was, it is clear, to reduce Shishman to the status of vassal, owing Murad allegiance, possibly the payment of tribute, and certainly the provision of troops to Murad's army. It was Shishman's failure to perform this last duty that led to Murad's dispatch of an army against the Tsardom in 1388. Bayezid I's marriages were similarly instruments of political domination. The first of these took place in the late 1370s, when his father married him to the daughter of Yakub, the lord of the neighboring Anatolian Principality of Jermian. The reason for the arrangement was clearly territorial gain, since the girl brought with her as a marriage portion the capital of Jermian, Kütahya, and other towns in the principality. In 1394, when he had succeeded to the throne, Bayezid married the daughter of the Countess of Salona, a Frankish principality to the east of Athens. With the bride, he acquired half of her mother's county. Both these marriages were, in legal terms, peculiar, since Islamic law does not require the bride to bring a dowry, as these two ladies clearly did. These acquisitions of land through marriage seem, therefore, to have been cases of the Ottoman sultans adopting, to their own advantage, the customs of their Greek and Latin neighbors. Bayezid's other marriage was more conventional. Probably in 1392, he married Olivera, sister of Stephen Lazarevich of Serbia, an arrangement which reduced Stephen to vassalage, with an obligation to provide troops and tribute. In return, Bayezid could offer Stephen protection, particularly against the ambitions of the King of Hungary. Matrimonial arrangements such as these were possible only when the Ottomans were a dominant military and political power. During the civil strife which followed Timur's defeat of Bayezid in 1402, the warring Ottoman princes no longer contracted marriages in order to dominate their neighbors, but rather to create alliances which were useful in the fight against their brothers. Thus, When Prince Musa landed in Wallachia in 1409, to challenge his brother Suleiman's ascendancy in Rumelia, he secured the alliance of Voivode Mircea of Wallachia by marrying this ruler's daughter. 4 years later, when he had defeated Suleiman, he married the illegitimate daughter of the despot Carlo Tacco of Ioannina, in an attempt to secure an alliance against his brother, Mehmed. Mehmed, in the meantime, had married a princess of Dulgadir, forming an alliance in Anatolia that would protect his southeastern border from a possible Timurid, Mamluk or Karamanid attack, while he fought his brother in Europe. At the same time, his Dulgadirid father-in-law provided him with troops for his final attack on Prince Musa in 1413. Murad II continued the practice of marrying into foreign dynasties. In 1423, the Lord of Kastamonu, Isfendiarulu, attacked Murad's lands, provoking the Sultan into a successful counterattack. Isfendiarulu sued for peace and, as a condition for Murad's non-aggression, gave the Sultan his infant daughter in marriage, and agreed each year to provide troops for his army. Murad's second marriage, in 1435, was to Mara, the daughter of the Serbian despot George Brankovic, whose allegiance was essential to Murad in securing the frontier with the Kingdom of Hungary along the Danube. The marriage of his son, Mehmed, II, in 1450 to Sidi Hatchin of Dulgadir 12, had a similar function of securing his eastern frontier in Anatolia. This too must have been the purpose of the marriage of Mehmed's son, Bayezid, II, to Aisha Hatchin, daughter of Allah Edival of Dulgadir, whose lands adjoined the province where the prince was governor. This was the last marriage of an Ottoman prince or sultan with a foreign princess. What is most striking about these marriages is that they seem, for the most part, to have been sterile. Murad II eventually produced a son by the daughter of Isfendiarulu, and Selim I was, exceptionally, the son of a princess, but, in general, the function of dynastic wives was not to reproduce, but to secure the loyalty of their fathers as allies or vassals of the Ottoman Sultan, and in the latter case, to live as hostages at the Ottoman court. Marriage for the Ottoman sultans was a political expedient. When it was no longer useful, they discarded the practice. The marriages of Ottoman princesses, insofar as records of them survive, seem to have followed a similar pattern. Before the mid-5th century, they married into foreign dynasties. Thereafter, their marriages were domestic. Murad I married one of his daughters to Suleiman Pasha, the lord of Kastamonu, and another to Aladdin, the lord of Karaman, whom her brother, Bayezid I, was to defeat and kill in 1397. There was another match with the Karamanids in the next century, when Ibrahim of Karaman, d. 1463, married Sultan Hatchin, a daughter of Mehmed I, by whom he had 6 sons. The events following Ibrahim's death, when these disputed the succession with a son of Ibrahim by another mother, indicate that there could be an advantage to the Ottoman Sultan in such an arrangement. The succession dispute gave Mehmed II a pretext to interfere in the affairs of Karaman, and to settle the dispute in favor of his own cousin, Pir Ahmed. Presumably too, when Murad II married a daughter to Qasim, the son of Isfendiarulu of Sinop, whose daughter he himself had married, his aim was to link the Ottoman and Isfendiarid dynasties to the advantage of the Ottomans. However, since legal descent is in the male line, the offspring of princesses married into foreign dynasties were not, in a legal sense, Ottoman, and these marriages could not therefore serve to establish Ottoman claims to territory. Furthermore, since the law forbids Muslim women to marry non-Muslims, princesses were available only for marriage into Muslim dynasties and not into the Christian dynasties of the Balkans. For these reasons, the marriage of princesses to foreign rulers seems to have been an unimportant element in Ottoman dynastic policy. After about 1450, the practice ceased. From the reign, certainly, of Bayezid II, it became a fixed custom to find spouses for the sultan's sisters, daughters and granddaughters among the ruling elite of the empire. Bayezid's daughter, Hundi Hatchin, for example, married her Sexaid Ahmed Pasha, who held the post of Grand Vizier 5 times during the reign of his father-in-law and under his successor, Selim I. This practice was not, in fact, new since Chandarli Mehmed, the brother of Murad II's Grand Vizier, Chandarli Halil, had married Mehmed I's daughter, Hafsa, 13, and there must have been similar marriages. From the mid-5th century, however, it became the normal, and probably the invariable, practice. During the second half of the reign of Suleiman I, it became customary for the Grand Vizier to marry into the royal family. Rustem Pasha, for example, Grand Vizier between 1544 and 1553, and again, from 1555 until his death in 1563, married Suleiman's only daughter, Myrima, d. 1574. Sokollu Mehmed, Grand Vizier to Suleiman's son, Selim II, was similarly the Sultan's son-in-law. This pattern of marriages was to be the norm until the end of the empire, 14, and clearly benefited the dynasty. By tying statesmen into the royal family, it reduced the risk of their establishing households which were independent of the Sultan, and, by requiring that the husbands of the royal brides divorce their other wives, it prevented their making marriage alliances with other households that might challenge the Sultan's power. These royal wives must also have acted as spies for the Sultan, reporting on the activities of his ministers. The purpose of marriage, therefore, was always political. It was concubines and not wives that assured the reproduction of the dynasty.